pleased to present Austin Faith Dialogue, brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries. In the weeks ahead, you will see these and other programs by various denominations. Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program at the crossroads of religion and life, a series highlighting the cultural and social interaction between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTVC. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue. With the turning of the calendar each year, we take stock. Whether personally or corporately, we annually calculate such things as our net worth or whether we have our priorities straight. Hello, I'm Richard Thompson, pastor of Central Presbyterian Church, and your host for this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. And today it's fitting for us to be doing what might be called a values forecast. In Austin, as in every community, that survey involves both material and human values. Two persons who are especially well positioned to lead us in reflection upon this New Year's turning are Angelos Angelou, the chief economist for the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce, and Beverly Duffy, who is with the Department of Human Services for the state of Texas, with special assignment for child care, emergency assistance, and teen pregnancy prevention. We welcome you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Good to be here.
And I have asked you to be on this show not because I looked in the yellow pages and found that you were listed under crystal ball gazers, but because I've had occasion to learn of your professional expertise to do some forecasting in the way of the economy and in the way of particularly child care and other human services. And Angelos, I'd like to ask you, if you would please, to give us a sense of how much Austin is worth, what its value is today as compared, say, to a year ago, and what we might expect it to be a year from now. Just ask you a very simple, easy question.
Well, Richard, there are many ways of evaluating what is Austin is worth today. One measure is personal income. Another measure is the value of all goods and services produced in the economy. And if we take the latter, then the Austin area economy is about $14 billion in size.
Mm-hmm. That's the gross national product.
That's the gross regional product for the Austin metropolitan area.
Okay. Okay, so you've been in Austin how long?
7 years.
Is that more or less or about the same of what it was 7 years ago?
Oh, it's much more. It has almost doubled. And in fact, the gross regional product in Austin and the Austin metropolitan area has been growing at a rate of about 8 or 9% per year on the average in this last decade. In the mid-'80s, it used to grow as much as 20% per year.
Oh, I see. It's slowed down, but still increasing.
It has slowed down.
Mm-hmm. And even with the oil bust and with the recessionary forces, we're still maintaining some upward increase in value.
Yes, there's no doubt about it. The economy is still growing, probably at a rate of about 5 to 6% per year. I must caution, however, that much of that increase is due to the increase in prices as well. Mm-hmm. So the numbers that I've given out today do not take into consideration any of the inflation that we have had in the last decade.
You have to factor that out
Sure.
to come up with a net increase.
That's right.
Well, we'll turn from a little less economic terminology, Beverly, and have you tell us a little bit about, tell us about the work that you do. Let's start with that.
Well, I work for the Department of Human Services, and I work with child care contracts that serve people who are low income, and also that serve certain kinds of clients that the department works with. For instance, Child Protective Services workers send clients to child care centers. Sometimes it helps reduce stress in the family. Sometimes the children are in foster care and the foster parents need child care. So we have a variety of kinds of clients who need daycare.
Okay. Well, let's just focus on daycare for a moment, because it seems to me that's one of the clearest counterpoints to what Angelos was talking about here in terms of gross regional product or value. Here we have what I have understood to be, like in the child care industry, what verges on it's a disaster. I mean, as far as paying people minimum wage to care for the future generations. I mean, does that show that even though we say we care a lot about our kids and that they're worth, you know, they're priceless to us, are we acting that way? I mean, I'm sort of setting you up with this question, but I've been waiting to ask somebody in this field just how much do we care and how much worth do we ascribe?
Well, I would have to say, in light of some statistics, first of all, just going back a little bit in time, the number of children in Texas under 18 living in poverty in, for instance, 85 was about 25% of the total number of children under 18. Back in the late 50s, that number of children living in poverty was less. It was 22%. So, first of all, the gap between the rich and the poor has just, I think, really increased.
Okay.
And I think the fact that we do ascribe to material goods in this country, and the fact that I would say from 1980 to 88, the federal government spent $1.9 trillion in national defense. And during that same time period, there was about a $10 billion cut in programs that serve children and families. And child care dollars were a part of these cuts.
So the priorities set in the federal budget reflected the underlying values felt for human needs in regard to, say, defense needs.
Right.
Well, I'd like to come back to have your forecast of things to come for the coming year, but before doing that, as she was talking, Angelos, I was thinking about the growth that you're describing in Austin as, is it at the expense of some folks? I mean, is it uneven? You get, you know, good employment opportunities and higher income, personal income for some parts of the city disproportionately more than others. Is Austin any different in that regard than what's going on elsewhere in the country?
Well, I think economics is not a zero-sum game where people would grow at the expense of others. I think the best type of a situation is when the overall economy, the U.S., is growing, and to have local economies like the one in Austin grow as well. And that is a case that we have been part of at least for the last decade or so. The U.S. economy has been growing, the global economy has been growing, and the Austin area economy has been growing. At the same time, we need to make sure that we have the type of industries in Austin, the type of jobs in Austin that provide further diversification of our economy, that employ all our people if possible, and create net wealth for our community. And we cannot increase the net wealth of our community by purchasing services from one another. We have to export some of those products and services that we produce here in Austin to other states, to other countries, to other cities in the world. That is how we increase our wealth as a community in Austin.
All right, but what Beverly was saying is that between 1959 and 1985, there were more people that fell into the, more children, I think you were saying specifically,
Yes.
fell into the poverty classification. I'm trying to reconcile that with what's been happening positively that you're talking about in Austin. Are you feeling that actually that we're doing what could or should be done as far as these human values are concerned?
Well, obviously, I guess economics of our region as well as the economics of the nation as a whole are not the point where one could point as the cause of that problem. Because certainly the nation's economy and that of the state of Texas and the local economy here has increased dramatically over the last 40 years. I think the cause might be attributed, and I'm not an expert in this area, so I'm going to give you my own personal judgment on, in many ways, the deteriorating situation in the American family unit. It might be a situation where we're not doing as good as a job as we used to do in education. We just don't have the same values that we did many years ago.
That's a little different emphasis, Beverly. I mean, insofar as Angelos is saying that it's the family not maintaining the values as perhaps compared to earlier times, or the educational system not producing as well as it could, that accounts for the increased poverty and not simply government deficiencies in support of children and others in need. How do you respond to that? Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I'm not sure that I agree with that totally, because I feel like government can't cure all the ills of society, but government can set the tone for what you want to have happen, what you value in a society. And certainly our government has not set the tone of valuing programs that emphasize children and families' needs.
Now, at the end of 1990, Congress did something that
you bet.
showed more value placed on that. Could you bring us up to speed on that?
Well, it was exciting for me because as a part of the budget package, there was a rider attached to it that was specifically money for child care. And there will be, I think, in late 1991-92, coming into Texas, it looked like to me maybe about $66 million more coming into the state for child care, for tax credits to folks who are under, say, a family of 2 or 3 for $10,000, and also some money to ensure that qualities of safety standards are regulated in child care, and probably some training dollars too. So
that's in 1991. We can expect that to happen.
Right. So,
all right. So there's more value given monetarily to this segment of our society through government sources.
I would say that maybe we're beginning to reorder our priorities.
All right.
It's a small step, Richard, a small step.
Well, I would think that, for instance, in the businesses in Austin that you deal with, where have you seen child care cared for in those settings?
Well, I have seen that the Association of Major Employers is quite concerned about child care in this community as well as throughout the nation. Eventually, whatever problems might be experienced by youngsters that are growing up today will transform themselves to major problems in the labor force, and will affect how companies are run in this country and how productive they are. So realizing that child care is in their best interest, there have been efforts to organize on their own child care units within their companies.
I mean, like it's on-site child care?
On-site child care. We're going to see more and more companies move
Where in
that
Austin do you see
direction.
that?
Well, there is one particular example that I can give you is SAS Institute, which is a software development company. They've been talking about a regional center for child care that might actually service 2 or 3 companies in Northwest Austin.
I see.
We're going to see more regional approaches where more than one employer will be able to participate in those programs and for the benefit of their own employees and for their own benefit as well.
Compare that with a year ago. I mean, that's happened just with that recently, that suddenly the private sector is taking hold here?
I don't believe that it happened recently. I think there has been more emphasis recently on that subject, given what I guess the media attention is on any given month or any given year on that subject. It does receive more attention or less attention. I believe in recent years it has received more attention from.
So we might expect by the end of 1991 that even more of that on-site businesses in one way or another providing child care for their employees.
We would like more and more employers to look into this area, to do whatever they can to participate with other corporations in providing some of the essential child care for dependents of their employees.
Beverly, do you have in your state agency a connection with companies and private sector providers of these kinds of services, or is this outside your purview?
That is outside my purview, really, but the Austin Child Care Commission was a spin-off of some folks who were concerned and went to the city, and there were folks in both the public and private sector who have, I think, made some inroads in the child care field, and part of those folks are not only, as he was talking about, moving toward child care benefits with corporations, but we're beginning to see some of the public agencies look to providing child care for some of their employees. And a couple of times during 90 and I believe 89, there were some town meetings sponsored by the Child Care Commission of Austin that folks could come and express their concerns about child care. And it seemed like there were a number of people who expressed a real need for affordable, accessible child care. Mm-hmm. And I think these folks are maybe beginning to be heard.
Now, the Child Care Commission would be like one of the commissions founded by the city government to bring
Right.
together those from public sector, private sector, and
who have an interest
Okay.
in child care and what it can, how it can be furthered in the community.
Let's talk about Travis County for a moment. Before we went on the show, you told me something that was a shock to me. I think it's probably important for the larger public to recognize what you said was the problem. The Travis County has the rather undistinguished record of being what?
Right. It's nothing that we can be proud of, but it's one of the counties in Texas with probably one of the highest birth rates to teen mothers.
Mm-hmm. Teen pregnancies.
Right. So it's not something that that we're proud of. It's certainly not something that many people are working on. The city is providing some child care for some of these parents, but they're, and some of them qualify for state and federal child care.
Do you have any idea why Travis County would be so highly rated in that regard?
I I really couldn't tell you that.
I mean, what is there about our community? What is there about this area? Is it something in the air, or, I mean, what do you think?
One of the primary reasons is we have one of the larger section of our population is within, I guess, the teenage area, as well as university students. So we have more than 100,000 college and university students in this area, which makes up almost 1 out of 7.5 people in Austin is a college and university
so just the mere demographics.
The demographics have a lot to do with it.
Okay.
So really what you're saying then that probably Austin is a little bit different as far as the makeup of population age-wise than probably the rest of the...
Well, I think it has a lot to do with that. Austin has the second youngest population in the state of Texas, besides the city of El Paso. The average age in Austin as of, I guess, the last census taken in 1980 was 26.7 years old. We're a fairly young population.
We're a yuppie town, aren't we?
A yuppie town. One of the things I wanted to point out is we've even seen developers move in the direction of providing child care facilities as part of their mixed-use developments.
Oh, I see.
As an amenity for what would be the potential employers that might relocate to their development.
Not just a community swimming pool, but a place to care for the
child
kids.
care facility. We have one in place at Walnut Creek Business Park. There is another one in under planning at Harris Branch, which recently recruited Applied Materials there. There is also help from the Private Industry Council that helps the minorities and the disadvantaged, and at this point actually anyone out of a job can qualify under federal programs to receive some assistance, and they do also provide benefits for child care. A qualified employee can be supported almost to the tune of I guess 6 months or 1 year for child care for their dependents.
You have said something earlier in the show I'd like to come back to and bring it into juxtaposition what you've just talked about. And that is how we tend to segment our thinking. We think of property values on the one hand and personal human values on the other hand, as if they were in two different worlds. And almost like people have the conception of the separation of church and state, just, you know, never the twain shall meet. But you said something in between your opening and more recent remarks that made me aware of how you really cannot separate that, and that you were saying that it's only as child care is available in such a way as to ensure the quality of life for the future generations, that the businesses are going to have employees that they can count on. And you talk about the teen pregnancy rate. That is to the self-interest of the private sector to make sure that the public sector helps respond adequately to this for the sake of the private sector in the year 1991 and in the 21st century. And I mean, I think this is one intuitive reason that I thought our interacting today about what seemed to be such opposites are in fact one reality. And as a local clergyman, I run the risk of preaching on this, so pardon me if I got carried away, but that's an occupational hazard, I guess. But do you respond, neither one of you respond to that wholeness of the issue?
Sure. I think the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce has had a wonderful program to help along in education. It's the Adopt a School program, which today has more than 1,000 corporations that participate in it. They help our schools with curriculum development, with in-kind contributions, with tutoring, hopefully to educate them on the important subject, first of finishing school, not to drop out of high school, that there will be some job opportunities for them when they graduate, that they stay away from drugs and teenage pregnancies, I think all of those things contribute to the topic under discussion tonight,
Okay.
child care problem.
Okay. What's your? Can you add to that, Beverly? In terms of the self-interest that is involved in seeing these as actually two aspects of one value.
I guess I can speak to that from a personal point of view,
Okay.
in that it's important to me to, in living my faith, to do the work I do in serving other people, and seeing that I can do whatever there is to be done in the way of volunteering or commitment. I think it's just more or less a time and talent commitment. My talents are in this field, so I've chosen to merge my values, I guess, and my profession.
You could have made $1 million doing something else, but you decided.
Yeah. It was too good to pass up.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the relation in this to the religious community. I mean, as Austin Metropolitan Ministries represents a wide range of various faiths, and we care, you know, I perceive that the religious community ought to care about the economic development of the town, not just what we would identify more narrowly as human services. Would you think that that's a fair expectation of the churches and the synagogues and
Well, I
other
think
congregations?
economic development should concern every business and every citizen of Austin, and I think it also ought to concern the church as well in that way.
And what could the churches do that they're not doing to improve in this regard? Do you see that there could be more support or more understanding or a better interpretation?
Well, I guess something general in nature of the advantages and opportunities that might be available to us as a city and as citizens to really make this city become what we want it to become, for a better life for us, a better life for future generations. And all of that is tied to economic development.
All right.
Because I cannot really talk about the benefits of having a ballet to Austin to an individual who's making minimum wage.
Right. And I think that what George Bernard Shaw said was, we may not live by bread alone, but we live by bread at least, and that we can't really separate that economic and social aspect of our lives. We would like to have to give you thanks as we separate now from this program, and thank you as viewers for looking in, and hope that you too can anticipate a deeper and a better community to live in as we enter into 1991. A Happy New Year to you all, and I'm Rich Thompson, the host for today, and good day. For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at 472-7627.